Despite some key injuries, the Atlanta Braves are off to a fantastic start in 2024. I'm going to give you my takeaways from the early portion of the season. Plus, I'll answer some more mailbag questions, including one about Orlando Arcia and if he should be considered for a contract extension. We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jacob Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast at LockedOn_Braves on social media. Also, make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button as well to help support the show here. You're listening on the audio version. Thank you so much for your support. If you would, leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to Locked On Braves. And thank you so much for all your support of Locked On Braves. If you're an everydayer, let me know down in the comment section below on YouTube. Today's episode, we are going to talk about some of the biggest takeaways from the early portion of the schedule here. I'll also answer some more mailbag questions that I missed on Thursday's mailbag episode. You want to go back and check that out. And then I'll set you up for the pitching matchups this weekend as the Braves host the defending World Series champion, the Texas Rangers. We got all that on today's Friday episode. Before we get into it, though, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. We are already 3 weeks into the season, 17 games already for the Atlanta Braves. So it's still very, very early, but we got enough of a sample size here, I think, to give you some takeaways from the Atlanta Braves season thus far. Braves have a 12-5 record, a plus 29 run differential, the best winning percentage in baseball, the second most wins behind the Guardians and the Yankees, who have each played 2 more games than the Braves so far. Braves had some rainouts here early on, unfortunately, kind of messed up the schedule. But despite losing Sean Murphy on opening day, despite losing Spencer Strider after 2 starts, despite losing or Ozzie Albies here later as well, Atlanta Braves have still gotten off to a fantastic start. And certainly, what you would like to see. There have been years in the past where the Braves have gotten off to a slow start and they've kind of had to play it in an exceptional baseball just to get back to the top of the NL East. And this year, once again, kind of like last year, they've taken off. And that is something that you will take. And I think the Braves have had a mild schedule to begin the year, and they've been able to handle it. I think they've caught in some breaks. We talked about the fact they caught the Diamondbacks while their rotation was down. They just caught the Astros with their rotation down. Same for the Rangers this weekend. They have a lot of pitchers on the injured list at the moment. But as I mentioned, the Braves have had their own rash of injuries and pretty key injuries, especially the one to Strider. And they've been able to push through all of that to this point and still have a really good record. And a lot of that has to do with my first takeaway so far through the first 17 games. And that is that this offense may be even better than last year, which is really crazy to think about. But you look at the fact that they're already leading Major League Baseball in slugging at 484. The second best is 459. They're already leading MLB in OPS at 842. Second best is 796. They're doing that with Ronald Acuna Jr. and Michael Harris being the only regulars that have an OPS under 700 right now, or under 800, I'm sorry. They're the only regulars with an OPS under 800 at the moment, and you figure those two guys will get there. Acuna's at 797, so he's basically there despite a slow start by his standards. Look, I know people don't like me saying this. I'm getting killed in the comment section for talking about regression for guys like Ozuna and Arcia, but there's going to be some regression at some point for a lot of these players. I don't think Ozuna is going to hit 352. I don't think Arcia is going to hit 377 this year. But even if that happens, this team hasn't even hit its power surge yet, at least in terms of home runs, which typically doesn't happen for this team until the weather warms up. Started the season in some cold weather areas. Now we're starting to see things heat up a little bit, they're just 13th in baseball with 20 home runs. That's not what you expect from this Braves team, but you look at the fact that they are first in doubles by a wide margin with 51. We've talked about this, me and Grant have on the postcast. Those doubles are going to turn into home runs, we know. And once that does happen, you're going to see this OPS and slugging go up even more. And again, they've done all this without Sean Murphy, who I think will have at least a 750 OPS. And depending on when he gets back, I think he'll still get to 15 to 20 home runs. And right now, Travis d'Arnaud, while he comes up with some big hits, he's carrying a 561 OPS. So this Atlanta Braves lineup, without Ronald Acuna Jr. being the MVP, and yes, they've got some exceptional performances so far from Ozuna and Arcia and others, Riley and Olsen, doing their job, but I feel like they could even do more than they have so far, and yet the Braves are still already leading in slugging and OPS. So again, we talked about it coming into the season. There's just no way this offense could even replicate what they did last year, but early returns, and I could see a path to where they could be just as good offensively as they were a season ago. Obviously, everybody has to stay healthy, need to get Ozzie Albies back, and Sean Murphy. But right now, I mean, there seems to be no stopping them. Ozuna, what he did, for the last several months last year from May on, he's carried that over into this year. And if he does that for a whole season, maybe there is no regression for Ozuna, and he's just a 40 home run guy once again. Maybe Arcia, after he had the struggles at the end of last season, last couple of months, maybe he's put that behind him. He can put a whole year together and be an above average offensive player. Those would be huge, maybe not gains for Ozuna, but gains for Arcia, and at least there wouldn't be that regression for Ozuna that many thought there would be. And I could see a path to this offense being just as good as they were a season ago. Takeaway number 2, the pitching will be better, and it has to be. There's no sugarcoating it. They have been really bad to start the season. They're currently ranked 24th in team ERA at 4.14, and they're 21st in WHIP at 1.33. You look at the starters, it's even worse. 26th in ERA at 4.93 and 26th in WHIP at 1.41. This is not a bottom 5 starting rotation in baseball. It's just not. They've pitched that way so far to start the season. But even as is, without Spencer Strider, it's just hard for me to imagine that Chris Sale, Charlie Morton, Ronaldo Lopez, Max Fried, that it's going to be a bottom 5 rotation this year. The staff's expected batting average is 240. That's 8 points below their actual, and they rank 6th in expected slug at 371, 9 points lower than their actual. So they've been a little bit unfortunate, unlucky to begin the year. Obviously, some of that has to do with their own issues. The command for both Max Fried and Charlie Morton just has not been there. They have to pitch better than they have, and I believe they will. But again, right now, they're hardly a top 25 staff. I think they'll end the year top 15. And if you have a top 15 rotation with the offense that, as I just mentioned, might be even better than it was last year, this team's going to win a lot of games. We've already seen that so far this year. With as bad as the pitching staff has been, this team is still 12-5 right now and going up against some quality opponents like the Phillies, like the Diamondbacks, like the Astros. I know they're struggling right now, but still a very good team. And they're 12-5, despite having one of the 5 worst starting rotations in baseball statistically at the moment. They've got to be better. They will be better going forward. And again, we'll talk more about that. We have talked more about that. I think, a move will need to be made, but this pitching staff has to step up and pitch like it's capable, and I believe they will. And again, if they can just be a top 15, maybe it's not the top 10 rotation we thought it would be with Strider in there to begin the season, but I still think this rotation will end up at the top 15 staff once they get their feet under them and start pitching, hopefully, like they're capable of. And then my third takeaway, I feel like the defense has been better. I know there was that game against the Mets, that afternoon game at home, that was just a disaster. But for the most part, I feel like the defense has improved a little bit this year. Specifically, Olsen, he's looked much better defensively at first base. Riley looks like a Gold Glove finalist. Arcia looks even better than he looked last year when he was, slightly above average defensively. Kelnick has made some great plays in left field. He's shown off a very strong arm. I don't feel like Acuna's really been tested yet, but he makes the plays that he's supposed to make. Ozzy is still struggling. I can't figure this one out, and it's frustrating because it's somebody that I thought had the potential to win a Gold Glove, but he is just it's a struggle for him over there. I feel like I can throw harder than Ozzy Albies from second base right now. I feel like there are at least a handful of double plays that could have been turned if he had any strength behind his throws, but he just doesn't, and that's a major issue right now for the Braves. Maybe not at the moment because he's out, but when he's back, that is something that is hurting the Braves right now is Ozzy defensively. And I don't know if the shoulder is still bothering him. It's changed the way that he's throwing the ball, whatever it may be. That is hurting the Braves at the moment. Now you want Ozzy in there because of the 30 home run bat that he has and what he brings you at the plate. But right now, defensively, it is a struggle for him, which is just so odd because again, he has been such a good defensive player in the past. Another odd one so far, Michael Harris has been underperforming as well in center field. Hasn't quite made the plays that we're used to seeing him make. A couple of misplays, one being in that afternoon game against the Mets. I have no worries about him that he'll turn things around and be that Gold Glover that we all know he can be. And it's way too early to even be looking at defensive metrics right now. But he and Ozzy are the only players with a fielding run value in the negatives at the moment. You look at Fangraph's defensive rating, and overall as a team, it has the Braves at plus 3.1. That's 8th best in Major League Baseball. Last year, they finished at plus 0.3, which was 13th best. So, again, way too early to look at defensive metrics, which I take with a grain of salt to begin with. But even those do show the Braves have improved some defensively. I mentioned Baseball Savant's fielding run value. And with only Albies and Michael Harris as a negative rating, RC is plus 3 and Olsen plus 1. So even those are kind of bearing out what my eyes are telling me early on, that the Braves defense has picked up a little bit. And if Michael Harris gets back to his Gold Glove level, there's really only one weak spot on this Braves team defensively, and that's at second base, especially once you get Sean Murphy back behind the plate as well. So those are my 3 early season takeaways: offense, pitching staff, and defense. Right now, again, this team has been great despite some major injuries that they've had, despite some of the scheduling, the bad weather, all of that. This team is still 12-5, playing really well, and I think the best is still yet to come. All right, we got a lot of questions from Thursday's Mailbag episode I didn't get to, including one about Orlando Arcia and whether or not the Braves should be looking to extend him. I'll answer that question and many more here next. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, with baseball in full swing as well. FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. Unfortunately, the Hawks bowed out early in the play-in tournament, but you still have that action going on as well. You can check out over at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. The Celtics are the favorite to win it all in the NBA right now at plus 165. The Dodgers are the favorites to win the World Series at plus 350, with the Braves behind them at plus 500. And again, you can see all those lines over at FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet an automatic win. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/PlaySafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports, ESPN all day on your TV? Just got it going on in the background, and it's so annoying, the constant yelling that they have just about nothing, just to hear themselves talk. If you're getting tired of that, but you still want to hear some good sports coverage all day long on your TV while you work, check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On Monday, we'll recap the Rangers series and catch you up on everything happening at the minor league level. So look out for that next week, and then we'll have plenty more coverage of all the Braves games going on and our typical weekly podcast that we have. Let's jump into some questions. There's several I didn't get to on Thursday's Mailbag episode. If you missed that episode, go back and give it a listen. But I'm going to get to the rest of those questions here. Pat says, great extra innings win for the sweep on a Wednesday. Question, with Lopez's success so far in the rotation and the depth the Braves have with starters, do you truly think they trade for a quality starter before the All-Star break trade deadline? Still early, but thoughts. Love the show. Oh, thank you for the question, Pat, and the kind words. But I don't think there will be an immediate trade. I think they'll go through that depth that you're talking about first. Give Winans, they already did. Give Vines, give Dodd a shot, or not Dodd, give Elder. May give Dodd a shot at some point, but I think they'll give all their internal options a chance here. It's still so early on. I do think they will look to add a quality starter before the trade deadline. Maybe not before the All-Star break, but I do think before the trade deadline, I think they will look to add a quality starter. It may be somebody of a Paul Blackburn type, somebody that's going to be a number 3, number 4 type of guy. I don't think they're going to add a top of the rotation player, but I do think they look to add at least another quality starter just to give you that depth. Because again, I mean, it's 2 postseasons in a row that you've gone on in there and you've lost 2 key guys, or at least had a couple of them banged up. I don't think you can take that chance again if you're Alex Anthopoulos of not having enough depth in the rotation going into a postseason. And so I do think they will at least make a move for another starter. Caden Hurds along those lines says, where could the Braves go in terms of trades for a frontline starter? I don't know if it will be possible, but I pray that AA can pull off a Tariq Skubal type player. Not going to be him. The Tigers are building around him. I think you got to look at who's out of it, and it's just too early right now to tell. Again, with the postseason format, more teams getting in, more teams are going to want to go for it to get that final wild card spot. So it's really kind of tough right now to tell who's going to be out. You know the White Sox are going to be out, but they're not trading Garrett Crochet. You don't want Michael Soroka back right now. I don't think there's anybody really there, especially not frontline. And as I just said, I don't think they're going to get a frontline starter. I just don't think they're going to have the prospect capital to be able to pull that off at the deadline. If they do, and if anybody can, it'll be Alex Anthopoulos. But I don't think they'll get a frontline guy. I think it'll be more of a mid-rotation type of starter. But I don't know that that's coming from the White Sox. You look at the A's. We already talked about Paul Blackburn a lot. I think he's a good fit, but he's not a frontline starter. Marlins, maybe they trade Jesus Luzardo. Do they do that within the division? Are the Rays willing to give up A.J. Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop within the division? You know, maybe the Marlins want some prospects. I'd give up as much as I love Nacho Alvarez, I'd give up a Nacho Alvarez for somebody like that. Obviously, we need to see Luzardo turn things around first. He's off to a rough start, but maybe there's something there with the Marlins if those 2 division rivals can pull off a deal. If the Cardinals are out of it, would they trade Sonny Gray after just signing him? I mean, that's a possibility and maybe a chance to get a frontline starter. You look at the Rockies, who you know are going to be out of it. Herman Marquez, maybe. Again, it's probably not a frontline guy, but maybe get him out of Colorado and he pitches a little better. The Giants, if they're out of it, do they look to trade Blake Snell, who they just signed and who has an opt-out? It could be a rental player. And again, there's another possibility there to maybe get a frontline starter. Again, it's just really too early to know exactly who would be available because there's so many teams right now that probably think they still have a chance to get in the postseason and make some noise. But just taking an early look at who I know could be out of it, might be out of it, those are just some of the quick names that I jotted down. If you have some other names you'd like for me to comment on, please let me know and leave those in the comment section. I respond to just about every comment out there that I get. So if you have some names in mind, please let me know. Large Lars says, I think the Braves need a home run celebration theme. Any idea? I am not the team celebration guy. Look, I love it. It's fun for the players. It's just not my personality. It kind of annoys me that every time a player gets on base, they have to think about all the dance moves that they have to do, looking back at the dugout. Again, it's cool. It's what the players like and want to do. It's not my thing. But I'm cool with just doing the old hand chop that they used to do for a while. Just bring that back. That's fine with me. Blue Dead Revolver says, how far does Mario Baez raise this year? I don't know that he can raise all that much. I'm very high on him. I picked him up in my deep dynasty league. So I do like Mario Baez, but he's so young. I don't think they're going to bring him stateside this year. So he's probably just going to have another year in the Dominican Summer League. So that's really just not that much potential for him to raise up. If they did bring him stateside, even if he was in the Arizona Complex League and he had a good year, I could see him pushing top 15, top 10 in the Braves system. But I just, depending on where they put him, I don't think there's going to be much room for him to grow. If he follows up on what he did last year and does it again, then certainly there's going to be more eyes on him and more attention. But really, I think until you see him do it stateside, we won't see his stock completely take off. Joanne Barrow 2 says, not really a mailbag question, but can you explain who decides the blackouts? Is it the team or the broadcast network? So I pulled this straight off Wikipedia. Full disclosure, it says most blackouts are for two reasons. The first is local cable providers' desire for exclusive broadcasts. That is your reason. It's exclusivity. If I'm saying that correctly, it's getting people to pay. I just paid a $10.99 or $10 a month for Apple TV Plus because I want to watch the Braves game on Friday night. Now, there's other stuff on there that I'm going to try to squeeze in to watch this month to try to make that subscription worth it. But that's the whole point of a lot of these network deals, is that you have to come to them to be able to watch what you want. I mean, that's what we're all dealing with all these subscription services. I got 4 or 5 different subscription services that all have certain things on them that I want to watch, and they're all exclusive to those services. It's the same thing when you're looking at Major League Baseball broadcasting. There's these networks that have exclusive rights to your team, and they want you to come to them for that and to pay a premium to get that content strictly from them. So that's exactly what it's about. It's making you go directly to the supplier to get that content that you want. And that's really what blackouts are all about. And it just comes down to those networks making it exclusive so that you have to come to them for that content. Same that we're doing for all these streaming services. Isaac Rayfield says, since the MLB All-Star Game typically doesn't invite a ton of relievers, which Braves reliever could you see make the team this summer? Got to be Iglesias. I mean, if a reliever is going to make the All-Star team, it's usually going to be a starter, unless there is just a reliever that is out of his mind. And if that were going to be anybody right now, it would be AJ Minter with the way that he's pitching. But again, typically it's a closer. If Iglesias is having a good season, he's racking up the saves, good ERA, good whip, and all that, I could see him making the All-Star team, but it would probably either be Iglesias or Minter. Final one here from KT says, with the way he played the first half of last year and how he started this year, is it time to think about giving Arcia a long-term deal when it's time for him to be extended? Dude's only 29. All right, so I've taken a lot of heat in the comment section here lately for my talk of Orlando Arcia, and I don't know that that's justified. I've never really said that I don't like Orlando Arcia. I have just said he's a fine player. And I feel like that's been true. I feel like he's a fine player. You look at what he did last year, and yeah, it was a great first half, and he was an all-star player. But at the end of the year, he had a 99 WRC plus. 100 is league average. So he was about league average offensively last year. And I think he's a little bit above average defensively. And that's what I've always said about Orlando Arcia. I think he is a slightly below average hitter and a slightly above average defensive player. And that proved true last year. Now, if he continues what he's doing right now, and like I said, puts a whole season together, I will gladly eat those words. And I will be very excited that that Arcia has become a full-fledged all-star and somebody that is one of the top 10 shortstops in baseball. If that's the case, great on him. But all indications point to the fact that there's going to be some regression, that he's going to be a league average player. He had an OPS plus of 98 last year. League average is 100. So again, for most of his career, even 2022 with limited sample size there, he had a 102 OPS plus. So he has been a league average hitter for the last couple of years. And again, maybe there is a breakout here. As you said, he's only 29. So, I mean, there's certainly possibility that he could have a career season and put up a 110, 115 OPS plus, WRC plus, something like that. Do I think he's going to hit 377, 400 with a 550 slug all year long as he is right now? It just, history does not support that. He's more likely a 750 type of OPS, 260, 270 type of hitter that's going to hit 15 to 20 home runs. And that's fine. Again, I like Orlando Arcia for this team. I don't think he's going to hurt you, and I think he's going to be more than a benefit than a negative. Now, do I think there needs to be some sort of extension talk for Arcia? I don't know. I mean, you're talking about extending somebody who's been a average to below average player for most of his career going into his 30s. And you have 2 more years of control on him at $2 million a year. I think you let that ride out and just see what happens. I don't think there's any need to run out and extend Orlando Arcia. I guess the question was if he continues to do what he's doing right now, and if he plays like he did in the first half last year and how he started this year, maybe if there's something tangible there that you can look at in the analytics to say this is going to be Arcia going forward, he's going to be an all-star level hitter going forward, then yeah, maybe you extend him through his age 34 or 35 season, especially if he'll give you $2 million a year. It is one of the best discounts in baseball. Him and Ozzie Albies is what they're giving you for, a combined $10 million a year. I think it's even less than that. $9 million a year is just insane. But there's no reason for me right now to run out and try to extend Orlando Arcia. As KT said, maybe if he continues this up all season, maybe you look at it at that point and he just becomes your shortstop of the future and we can stop looking for that. But I wouldn't jump the gun on that just yet. All right. We still got the pitching matchups to get to for this weekend's series against the Rangers. Should be a fun one at home. We'll discuss all of that here next. Spring training is over. Baseball is in full swing. As we've talked about today, we're already 3 weeks into the season. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's for strikeouts, RBI, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action each and every day, watching your favorite sports and players. I'm just checking out the Prize Picks picks right now that we have for MLB for Friday, seeing what they have on the lines for, or what they have on the more or less for the Atlanta Braves. Ronald Acuna, 1.5 total bases. Chris Sale strikeouts are at 6.5. You want to go out there and create a Prize Picks entry for the Braves today. You can pick more or less on Chris Sale strikeouts at 6.5, or Ronald Acuna Jr. total bases at 1.5. They got others out there as well that you can choose from. Just pick 2 to 6 players or groups of players and decide if you think they'll have more or less on certain stats like home runs, hits, total bases, strikeouts, and more. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use our code, all lowercase, LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, let's jump into the pitching matchups real quickly. Sorry, I'm running up against the clock again. Andrew Heaney versus Chris Sale on Friday night. Heaney hasn't made it through 5 innings yet. Hopefully that continues. 7 walks to just 3 strikeouts in his last 2 starts. Braves have struggled against lefties a little bit this year. Not like them. No player has a home run off Heaney. Olsen and Kelnick have both had success against him, although you'll probably see Duvall in the starting lineup over Kelnick. Duvall's 0-2 against Andrew Heaney. Chris Sale needs some better luck this time out. Thought he pitched much better than his line indicated last time. Marcus Semion's 5 for 17 against him with 2 home runs. Nobody else has more than 3 plate appearances against Chris Sale. On Saturday, Nathan Eovaldi versus Charlie Morton. Morton need to see better command. He is the one that I'm worried about the most at the moment. Semien, also good numbers against him, 9 for 24, but no home runs. Corey Seager, just 1 for 12 with a 50% whiff rate against Charlie Morton. As for Nathan Eovaldi, off to a great start. He did give up 5 earned in his last start in Houston, but still went 6 innings. He's one of those guys, kind of like Charlie Morton. When he's on, he's great, but things can get away from him pretty quickly. Only Acuna has homered against him. Fletcher is 4 for 6 off him with 2 doubles. Again, you're probably going to see Guillorme just because he is a left-handed hitter, but Fletcher has good numbers off of him. And then on Sunday, it's Michael Lorenzen versus Darius Vines. Lorenzen, 5 shutout innings in his first start, but 5 walks. I watched most of that start for Michael Lorenzen. Did not look very impressive. It was his first start back after injury. He got 3 double plays to help get him out of some jams in that one. But hopefully the Braves can get to him. Orlando Arcia 7 for 19 with 2 home runs against Lorenzen. Olsen has 2 bombs as well, and Acuna has 1 against him. So hopefully a lot of home runs for the Braves on Sunday Night Baseball against the Rangers and Michael Lorenzen. For Darius Vines, keep him off balance. If he can have better command. Last time, look, he didn't have his command for 2 innings and still pitched a pretty good game against the Astros. If he can get it from the jump this time, I just need 5 solid innings from Darius Vines. That's all I'm really looking for here. Give the Braves a chance to win. Those are your pitching matchups against the Rangers this weekend. Should be a fun series. Friday night is on Apple TV+, so be prepared for that. And then Sunday is the night game on ESPN. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure you follow us on social media at shortstopball, at @LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. And on the audio version, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get the Locked On Braves podcast. And we will talk to you next time.